What if I told you that the reason you can't stop dating emotionally unavailable people, or like the reason you violently self-sabotage right when things at work are going well, actually has absolutely nothing to do with bad luck?
Right. Or even that it's just, a part of your personality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What if it's not a character flaw at all, but rather, well, a highly sophisticated biological survival mechanism that you developed when you were roughly 3 years old?
It really is the ultimate plot twist of human psychology.
Yeah, I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
Because we spend our entire adult lives trying to solve the mysteries of our behavior by, looking at the present.
Yes, but the architect of all those choices is actually hiding in the past.
Yeah, exactly. You know that feeling when you're staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. and you're replaying a conversation or a fight?
Oh, absolutely.
And this heavy, just incredibly frustrating realization washes over you. You realize you are making the exact same painful choice over and over again. And you just ask yourself, like, why do I keep doing this? I am a smart, capable adult. Why can't I just choose differently? It's so common.
I have to admit, I've been feeling this profound inner tension lately. This deep, sort of aching desire to finally figure out my own unresolved loops. To understand why my conscious, logical brain says one thing, but my actual life tells a completely different story.
Well, it is truly the most universal human frustration. And what's so fascinating here is how our brains trick us into thinking we are in the driver's seat.
Right.
To really understand why you keep repeating these patterns, I want you to imagine a space, not a spooky metaphorical dungeon, but a real, completely ordinary physical space from your childhood.
Okay, I'm picturing a house.
Great. Think of a hallway. Maybe
Yeah.
the floorboards sigh a bit under your weight. The paint is, a little chipped around the door frames. And at the end of the hall, there is a door.
Okay.
The door isn't wide open, and it isn't fully closed either. It stands ajar. And it was left that way deliberately by a waiting child.
Oh, wow.
And the child doesn't cross the threshold. The child just waits for a caregiver who is either physically absent or emotionally out of reach. That is...
And in that chronic state of waiting, an imprint crystallizes in the nervous system. The physical body actually remembers the posture of waiting long after the adult mind has completely forgotten what it was even waiting for.
That is such a grounding, visceral image. It's less of a horror movie and more of just like a really sad Tuesday afternoon.
Exactly.
And really, that's our mission for this deep dive. We are going to explore this psychic architecture. We want to understand how our minds build these structures, what's happening beneath the floorboards of our awareness, and most importantly, figure out how we can finally tell that kid they can stop waiting by the door.
It's vital work, because that posture of waiting dictates so much of our adult lives. And it's crucial to understand a key mechanism here.
Okay.
The foundational wounds that freeze us at that door,
Yeah.
they aren't always what society categorizes as dramatic, shattering traumas. More often than not, they are the quieter catastrophes of absence.
The quieter catastrophes, that's a striking phrase. Give me an example of how that actually works practically.
Well, from a biological standpoint, a human infant is completely helpless.
Right, completely dependent.
Our survival depends entirely on maintaining proximity and connection to a caregiver. So a quiet catastrophe might be a mother who turned away one too many times when an infant cried.
Oh, man.
And not because the baby was hungry, but because they desperately needed to be held to regulate their nervous system. Or, say, father whose praise only ever arrived after a tangible achievement, never just for simply existing.
So it's not what happened, but what didn't happen.
Exactly. It's the silence that settles in a room where a word of comfort should have been. To an adult, a distracted parent is just an annoyance. But to an infant's nervous system, a persistently unattuned parent is perceived as a literal threat to survival. The psyche simply cannot tolerate pure absence.
Because absence literally means death to a baby. So what does the brain do if it can't tolerate it? It has to do something with that terrifying empty space, right?
It fills the void with anticipation.
Anticipation.
Yes. The unmet infantile need doesn't just evaporate because you learn how to pay taxes and drive a car. It becomes a permanent compass needle in your unconscious, fixed to magnetic north.
Wow.
But that north isn't a physical place, it's a promise. The promise of satiation, of finally being recognized, of finally being safe. And our fundamental life energy, our drive, fixates on that unmet need. It anchors itself there like a root seeking water in solid stone.
Okay, let's unpack this because this is where it gets really unsettling for me. But also, I mean, kind of a bit funny.
How so?
Because as an adult, I love to rationalize my behavior. I like to think I'm making these highly autonomous choices. I will sit at a coffee shop and say things to my friends like, I just deeply value my independence, or I just have incredibly high standards for who I date.
Right, the stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah, but what you're saying is that I'm basically a puppet, and my 3-year-old self is working the strings.
Precisely. Let's look at the mechanism behind those high standards. Take a brilliant executive who absolutely refuses to delegate any work.
Right.
The conscious rational narrative is, I have high standards, nobody can do it as well as I can, I'm just ambitious.
Sure, sounds great on a resume.
But beneath that, neurologically and psychologically, he is still the young child who learned that absolute rigid control was the only available antidote to the terrifying feeling of helplessness in a chaotic home.
That completely reframes it.
Or consider someone who continually, chronically chooses emotionally unavailable partner.
Oh, the classic. I mean, we all know someone or are someone doing exactly that.
Exactly. And they aren't doing it because they are masochistic or just have bad luck. They are unconsciously replaying a primal scene.
Replaying it.
Yes. They are longing for a caregiver who is physically in the room but psychically absent. They were drawn to the familiar signature of unavailability because their unconscious mind thinks, I know this puzzle, this time I will solve it. The choices look autonomous to the adult ego, but they are repetitions.
It feels like we spend our entire adult lives desperately trying to buy a train ticket to a town that doesn't exist anymore.
That is a brilliant way to put it.
Like we're standing at the station in our nice adult suits, cash in hand, demanding a route to a place that was demolished 20 years ago.
That is exactly how the mechanism operates. The station is the present reality, but the destination you are trying to reach is a ghost town.
But this raises a massive, glaring question for me.
What's that?
If we are just replaying these painful, exhausting childhood loops, why don't we realize it? I mean, human beings are supposedly the most intelligent species on the planet.
True.
So why doesn't the prefrontal cortex, like the logical part of the brain, just step in, look at the ghost town, and say, hey, this is ridiculous, stop trying to buy a ticket? Why is the truth hidden from us so effectively?
Because of the brilliant, incredibly stubborn architecture of defense.
Yeah.
Specifically the mechanism of repression, and we need to clarify what repression actually is.
Okay, yeah, let's define it.
It is not just forgetting where you left your keys. It is an active, relentless, metabolically expensive quarantine of painful emotion.
Wait, metabolically expensive, meaning it literally drains our physical energy to keep things hidden.
Absolutely. Think about the physical energy required to hold a beach ball underwater.
Oh man, it's exhausting.
It is. The psyche makes a survival calculation early in life. It says, to consciously remember the raw, agonizing pain of this emotional absence would destroy my ability to function.
It would just be too much.
Right. I cannot live with the unbearable conscious thought that I must contort myself into a pretzel just to be loved. So the psyche performs a kind of internal surgery. It severs the raw emotional feeling from the memory and buries it.
So it's essentially installing a massive, really aggressive firewall. The conscious mind gets to operate the day-to-day software smoothly, but only because the firewall is blocking all the malware being our own painful memories.
Yes, the firewall analogy is perfect. You are living in a palace built on a crypt, and to keep that firewall intact, the psyche builds secondary defenses.
What kind of defenses?
Well, these aren't character flaws, remember. They were once your most brilliant, necessary survival strategies. Take projection, for instance.
Okay.
The unbearable recognition of your own deep neediness is too dangerous to acknowledge. If you admit you are needy, the firewall breaches. So you expel the feeling outward.
How does that look in real life?
You look at a partner who just wants to spend time with you, and you say, ugh, you are so clingy, when in biological reality, you are the one terrified of your own bottomless longing.
Oh, wow. I feel personally attacked right now, but I completely see it. And displacement works the same way, right?
Very much so.
Like the cliche of the guy who gets yelled at by his boss, comes home and kicks the dog, the energy has to go somewhere.
Exactly. The nervous system generates a massive amount of fight or flight energy when threatened. But if the original target of that anger, say, a domineering parent or a powerful boss, is too dangerous to confront, the energy seeks a safer discharge.
Right, you can't punch your boss.
No, you can't. So the executive screams at an assistant, over a minor typo, because the emotional reality of screaming at the father who constantly belittled him would collapse the entire internal architecture.
And then there are the defenses that society actually applauds, which is wild to think about.
Oh yes, sublimation is probably the most celebrated defense mechanism we have.
Explain how that one works practically. Like, how does society applaud a defense mechanism?
Well, sublimation is taking an unacceptable primitive drive and channeling it into something socially valuable.
Okay.
So a deep unresolved craving to aggressively cut and control might be sublimated into becoming a brilliant life-saving surgeon.
Wait, really?
Yes. Or an intense, insatiable craving for early maternal fusion and nourishment might be channeled into becoming a master culinary artist. The underlying drive is still rooted in an infantile deficit, but the object of that drive has been highly civilized.
I have to say, looking at all of this, the sheer exhaustion of maintaining this internal structure is overwhelming.
It really is a full-time job for the brain.
I mean, I almost want to take a nap just thinking about the server costs of running my own brain. It really reframes everything.
How so?
So my anxiety, my obsession with color-coded spreadsheets, my perfectionism, they aren't just annoying personality quirks. It's my psyche actively maintaining the firewall to protect a very fragile system underneath.
Exactly.
But honestly, I'm terrified to turn the firewall off. Who am I without my productivity and my anxiety?
That terror is completely valid and is exactly why change is so extraordinarily difficult. To dismantle the firewall feels like psychological annihilation because your adult identity has entirely fused with it.
Yeah, they feel like the same thing.
But here is where we have to look at how these internal firewalls dictate our external world. Because we don't just keep this architecture neatly inside our own head.
You don't?
No, we actively recruit other people into it. We turn the entire world into a stage to reenact our past. In psychoanalysis, this is the living pulse of the unconscious. Transference.
Transference. So we basically cast people in our unconscious plays.
We absolutely do. We do not choose people randomly. We are unconsciously drawn to people who fit the original template of our early caregivers.
So my boss.
The authoritative boss suddenly becomes the critical father. The romantic partner becomes the withholding mother. And we do this through a mechanism called the repetition compulsion.
But why? I mean, if it hurts, why on earth would the brain compel us to repeat it? I thought the brain's whole job was to keep us safe and avoid pain.
That's a logical assumption, but the unconscious mind does not prioritize happiness. It prioritizes coherence and familiarity. Yes, the brain hates an open loop. We repeat the painful dynamic in a desperate attempt at retroactive correction.
Retroactive correction, what does that mean?
The unconscious logic is, if I can just find someone who possesses the exact same emotional unavailability as my mother, and I can finally be smart enough, pretty enough, or successful enough to make this person stay, then I will retroactively rewrite history.
Wow.
It will finally prove that I was worthy of being loved in the first place.
That is just wow. We are literally trying to win a rigged game from 30 years ago.
Yes.
And how does this actually map out developmentally? Because I know psychology often talks about early childhood phases, but I want to understand how a toddler's development actually translates into, say, a 35-year-old's obsession with control or rivalry.
It's all about how early milestones shape our capacity for autonomy and relationship. Let's look at the period where a child is first learning autonomy. You know, the classic terrible twos.
Oh yeah, the phase where they just say no to everything.
Exactly. They are learning to control their own bodies. If a toddler's natural, messy exploration of independence is met with extreme control, harsh punishment, or deep shame from a caregiver, that developmental energy gets stuck.
So how does that manifest in the adult at the coffee shop?
Well, that adult might become a severe perfectionist, a micromanager, or even a hoarder.
A hoarder, really?
Yes. Beneath the surface, they are masking a profound, primitive terror of chaos. They experienced early vulnerability as highly dangerous, so their entire adult life is organized around rigid order. Spontaneity feels like a literal threat to their survival.
Okay, and what about later development, like the phase where kids start noticing power dynamics and competition?
Yes, the stage of rivalry and seeking recognition, the phallic phase. If the early dynamic with the parents involves constantly having to compete for attention or feeling chronically diminished by a powerful caregiver, the adult identity becomes entirely tethered to display and conquest.
Hold on, I need to push back on this a little bit.
Please do.
Are we really saying that a CEO working an 80-hour work week is just exhibiting a symptom of daddy issues? because that feels incredibly reductive.
I hear you.
What about the reality of just needing to pay a mortgage or trying to survive and succeed in a hyper-competitive capitalist society? Sometimes a job is just a job, right?
It's a very fair challenge, and it's important not to reduce all human endeavor to pathology. Yes, mortgages are real. Capitalism is very real. The external pressures are undeniable.
Right.
But the mechanism we are looking for is the compulsion and the emotional weight attached to the behavior. An individual with a healthy internal architecture can work hard, achieve success, and clock out. They derive satisfaction from the work.
Okay, and the other person?
The individual caught in the unconscious repetition cannot stop. If they lose a deal, it isn't just a financial setback, it is a total ego collapse.
Ah, I see.
The boardroom has literally become a stage for a symbolic victory over the father who never saw them. The external reality of capitalism just provides a very convenient, socially rewarded arena for the internal compulsion to play out.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. It's
Yeah.
the difference between driving the car and the car driving you.
Exactly.
But this leads me to something that feels deeply unfair. When I am absolutely devastated because someone pulls away from me, you're telling me I'm not actually just mourning them, I'm mourning the original parent who left.
Yes, often that is a large part of it.
If that's true, how can we ever have a real, authentic relationship if we're just projecting ghosts onto everyone we meet? It feels a little hopeless.
It is the tragedy of substitution. We spend so much of our lives seeking the wrong thing for the right reason. But your frustration leads us to the most critical barrier in this whole journey.
Which is?
Because right now, you and I are having a very intellectual conversation. You understand the firewall. You understand the ghost town. But simply knowing this intellectually doesn't cure you.
Right, yes. Because I can sit here, I can analyze my childhood, I can map out all my brilliant defense mechanisms, but the minute my partner uses a slightly sharp tone of voice, all that logic completely vanishes, and I completely spiral into a panic. Why is my brain betraying me when I know better?
Because your prefrontal cortex, the logical thinking part of your brain, might understand the theory, but your amygdala and your nervous system still believe you are in mortal danger. The body does not forget, it archives. The unconscious doesn't communicate in neat, logical sentences. It communicates through affect, through physical sensations, and through somatic warnings.
The somatic archive, the body's memory.
Exactly.
Oh,
Think about that sudden, suffocating tightness in your chest when a colleague gets praise that you felt you deserved.
yeah, that horrible sinking feeling.
That isn't just professional envy, it is the somatic echo, the physical ghost of the child whose achievements went entirely unnoticed.
Wow.
Or the compulsive, anxious checking of your phone for a text message. That isn't just modern digital anxiety, it is the physical, motor memory of waiting by the window for a parent who is always late.
This is hitting so close to home.
It's holding your breath and tensing your shoulders during a minor disagreement with your spouse, because your body is trying to make yourself physically small to avoid triggering a caregiver's unpredictable rage.
I feel this so deeply. The intellectual timeline and the somatic timeline are just completely divorced from each other.
They really are.
Intellectually, I know I'm safe now. I'm an adult. I have a house. I have a career. I can literally walk away from danger. But my stomach still knots up at the slightest hint of criticism. It's like my brain is living in 2026, but my nervous system is permanently stuck in 1995.
They are living in two different eras. And this is why, when you consciously try to change your behavior, say, you decide to finally set a healthy boundary or open up to a safe partner, your body throws up massive resistance.
Resistance like what?
You might experience sudden, crushing fatigue. You might get incredibly distracted. You might inexplicably pick a fight just to cancel plans with a healthy person.
Wait, really? The fatigue is a defense.
Yes, that is your body's threat detection system screaming, do not go there, do not lower the firewall, that door leads to pain. Healing cannot just be an intellectual exercise. It requires embodiment.
Embodiment, meaning we actually have to feel the thing we locked behind the firewall in the first place.
You have to let the body complete the physical response that was interrupted decades ago. You have to let the rage you swallowed as a powerless child physically shake your limbs. You have to let the frozen terror actually move through your nervous system. You cannot outthink a somatic archive. You have to feel your way through it.
Okay, so practically speaking, where does that leave us? Because earlier we talked about that child standing at the ajar door in the hallway. If I can't outthink it and I have to feel it, do I just violently kick the door down? Do I just smash the firewall? Because that sounds like a recipe for a total breakdown.
You are absolutely right. And no, you do not kick the door down. Violently tearing down your defenses would be incredibly re-traumatizing.
Okay, good to know.
Those defenses, as exhausting as they are, saved your psychological life when you had no other tools. The goal isn't to destroy them, nor is it to finally fulfill the infantile wish. Because let's be honest, the infantile wish is biologically impossible.
Right.
The past cannot be altered. The flawed parent cannot retroactively love you perfectly.
So what is the actual path forward? If we aren't destroying the defenses and we can't get the original need met, what do we do?
It's a psychoanalytic process called working through, and it relies on the practice of dual awareness.
Dual awareness.
Yes. You allow yourself to feel the old somatic wound while simultaneously firmly holding on to the new reality.
Give me an example. So it's like feeling the absolute irrational terror when a partner goes out of town for a few days, letting your stomach knot up, but simultaneously using your adult mind to hold the thought, this is not my mother leaving me, I am safe.
Exactly. You hold the tension of both timelines without letting one erase the other. And the real work, the absolute hardest work of all, is mourning.
Mourning.
You must consciously, deliberately mourn what was never given to you. You have to grieve the phantom town you keep trying to buy a ticket to and accept that the train is never coming.
That sounds incredibly painful.
It is.
Yeah.
But because when you finally mourn what you didn't get, a profound transformation happens. The massive amount of psychological and physical energy that was trapped maintaining that firewall, the energy trapped waiting at that door, is suddenly liberated.
Which means it frees up that metabolic energy so you can actually make choices based on what is possible today instead of constantly reacting to what was lacking yesterday. It stops being a compulsion.
Yes. And it brings us to a really beautiful realization about every single person listening right now.
What's that?
The incredibly specific way you take your coffee, the strange genres of film that always make you cry, the highly specific topics that make you inexplicably defensive at a dinner party, none of it is random.
No.
They all carry the watermark of your early needs and your early loves. You are a deeply historical being. Carrying the past isn't a malfunction of the machine. It is the very fabric of what makes you human.
I love that. It shifts the perspective completely. It's not baggage that we need to be ashamed of and hide away. It's the living tissue of who we are.
It is. Which brings us back to that hallway and that threshold. But before we finish, there is one final layer to this architecture that we often miss.
Oh, what is it?
When we finally look closely at the ghosts pulling our strings, we often discover something startling. Some of those ghosts aren't even ours.
Wait, what do you mean they aren't ours?
I mean that the emotional atmosphere you absorbed as a child was shaped by the unresolved longings of your parents.
Mhm.
You didn't just inherit their genetics, you inherited their defensive firewalls, their unmourned absences.
Oh, wow. Generations of ghost town.
Exactly. So the next time you find yourself paralyzed by a choice or trapped in one of those painful, repetitive loops, I want you to stop. Don't ask yourself, what is wrong with me?
Right.
Instead, take a breath, look inward, and ask, who is the child inside me still waiting for? And whose ghosts am I actually trying to appease? Because true liberation happens when you realize you have the power to walk down that hall, stand at the ajar door, and finally be the adult who says, I see you, and the wait is over.